Welcome, everybody. We are Abracadabra Sisters. I'm Muriel,
I'm Sharon.
and today we have Steve Forster here with us. We're continuing our conversation just to update everybody on what we're doing here. And you, Steve, we're called Abracadabra Sisters because the word abracadabra actually means I create as I speak. So we want to draw a lot of attention to the idea of how you speak and how that brings in your reality, whatever that might be. And so we were talking to a lot of creative people about how they bring in their reality and how they make things happen. And I think that I just like something just grokked in my brain recently because I was invited to make a piece of art for the University of Western Connecticut for the new president. And he has this motto, welcome, weave, widen. And basically that means they want to welcome the community of the school together and weave all their talents and skills and whatever together and then widen them out into the world. So having a great, speaking something like that is great. That's one thing. But then they asked me to make a piece of art to represent it as well. And I
Mm.
thought, yeah, that takes the process of creating an idea and bringing an idea into the world to another level, to a next level of creativity and activation or whatever that might be. So that's just a nutshell of what the heck we're doing and why we're doing this. so, so we met during COVID because everything is shut down at the New York Academy of Art. My classes that I was in the middle of just went kaput. And one teacher kind of got the online thing. The other one, it just disappeared completely, got nothing out of the rest of the class. But then the next semester, I found you teaching there. And so I thought, oh, let me try this class. And that started my fabulous adventure in your class, which I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed and will continue to enjoy at some point soon. So Sharon, do you want to ask Steve how to start letting us know what he's up to?
You know what? I'll
That's the job.
start in a sort of roundabout way. I'm going to ask Steve, how did you come to art? What was your path to art? What happened in your life that put you on the path towards teaching art and creating art?
Well, yeah, I was pretty young when I started. What I did is I started drawing with my mother, who was starting. She was becoming a graphic designer in the age of right when computers hit. So she was sort of learning a lot of like old school techniques, and we would draw and do little marker compositions together. And she very much encouraged me to do that. And my dad was more of like a jock, so I played sports and I did this. And my parents got separated, and I kind of became like a pretty angry
Mm.
young man. And art was kind of like an outlet, sort of a nonverbal way to sort of explore my own world, kind of make your own world and kind of process your feelings about being alive on this planet in a way that you didn't really have to explain yourself. And I think
Right.
that, that's probably really what the heart of art therapy is. Not that I'm an art therapist necessarily, but
I love
like
the
to,
way you said nonverbal there because it art is something visual art is something I'm just only beginning to dabble in, having been writing poetry, and I found myself excited about it because I can't put into words my feelings. I am so exasperated that I feel like I have to do it in a nonverbal way. I have to put it that I have to deal with the nonverbal right now because if I start opening up that tap, I'm not sure I'll be able to deal with it. So
yeah.
I get what you're saying when you say nonverbal, because if you're angry, sometimes you don't want to put it into words. Not yet, not until you figured it out, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because like when you put your thoughts into words, then it's like a record. It's like it has to be a coherent, consistent thought. And the world of emotions and processing your feelings isn't always coherent. So like it was a perfect space for me, that along with playing death metal music, that was really my way of processing that separation, which was like really traumatic for me at the time. And then I was surrounded by some amazing, like probably still my best art teachers were my high school art teachers that, you know, are a lot of unsung heroes, but they often set the course for young people and they're underappreciated. And it was less about like technique, but more that like they cared and kind of created an environment for you to explore those things. So my high school art teacher, Jennifer Howdeshell, who was an amazing woman, and then another one, Peggy Banks, really, she was kind of a professional artist that then became a teacher. And just the thought, like I went to her house and I saw this artwork and she talked to me about all these shows she had. And I was like, oh, you can do this? You're
Mhm.
allowed to do this?
Yeah.
And so that kind of just the fact that you could make a life out of a creative world was like really appealing to me. And so I sort of chased that for so many years. And that's kind of how I mean, it kind of went through a lot of different things. I went to Italy, I went to different schools in Florida, and then a school in New York, of course. But that's really what kind of got me started.
And you stuck with it.
Yes. Well, you do, when you're on that kind of road, which, it's almost like being a professional athlete, like the likelihood of making it in a certain way. Like maybe if you're like really into sports, you might become a coach, you might become a college athlete. It's like really hard to kind of get to like that high level. And you kind of do see people kind of drift away, like when things get hard or different opportunities come up or your interests change. So it is funny that, sometimes I don't really think of myself as like a really talented individual. I just think of somebody who just like stuck with it long enough. And if you stick with it long enough and you're just like doggedly determined, you're going to get better at something,
You
Well,
put in
and
the
here,
10,000 hours to get the skill, right?
Well, we might be like 50,000 hours,
oh, that would
100,000
be
hours. I don't
100,000.
know. We
And,
might be
and
pretty in deep.
Steve is an amazing artist, absolutely amazing, inspiring, lots of color, lots of beauty and emotion. I love your work, really. I really do.
Well, thank
Well,
you.
that
I'll give you some links and you can just put it in the description.
Well, you teach all kinds of like digital and then figurative and landscape, but is there something that's your favorite that you really stick with, some particular style,
Well, like a style or sort of like a genre, is that what you're
genre,
saying?
whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I was just left up to myself, there'd basically be like story paintings, like something that had a big impact on me was like going to Italy when I was young. And, like I'm from suburban Florida where there's not an aesthetic other than like golf carts and palm trees or something. Going to a place with such a rich tradition and history of figurative art specifically, that deeply interests me. So, I've been doing lots of portraits and sort of honing the craft on that. And when I paint individual portraits, they're kind of explorations of like visual vocabulary. How can I paint this head? How can I break it down into like a new brushstroke that I'm experimenting with, or a new color palette, or a new look, or they're kind of investigations into that. But really, the work that I probably care the most about would be sort of like these almost like biblical portrait story kind of things where there's more of like an epic narrative, even though it might be more obscure. Like I think it's probably a better idea to start with a specific narrative, but a lot of the work that interests me is more like the visual poetry of the image that may not even have a very specific story attached to it, but something that kind of, wells up from inside of me and speaks to me.
You go in a direction you think you want to go, and then you find out you know, let's try, let's try this and let's try that. And by the time you're done, you might have something completely else, not what you necessarily thought you were going to start with. Do you find
Well,
that?
yeah, yeah, kind of exploring different juxtapositions and kind of letting the image come to you and creating iterations, which is a big part of my creative process. Yeah, kind of being a little bit judgment free when you're in the image making stage. There's probably two mostly creative parts about what I do, and it's the image making before I paint it,
Hmm.
which is kind of like more like very experimental, lots of iterations and like a visual collage of a lot of different things. And then once that's sort of finalized, there's sort of the creative process of like improvising the painting. So like if my image is like the score of
Yeah.
the music, the painting is the improvisation and sort of the different things that happen in that moment that are creative in the physical painting. It's going to be different from my digital collage. Like it can't be the same thing. It has to transform and be something else if it's going to live.
And that's what keeps it really fresh and interesting. I kind of saw
Yeah.
that painting that I was working on with you. Steve was helping me, Sharon, with this portrait of a young woman who was going to be like a Eastern European Madonna in a modern framework of the war in Ukraine, which still goes on unbelievably. It just got so stuck that I stopped painting it. I was thinking, I think I'm going to destroy it. I mean, go back to it because I still like the idea, but this is for everybody in the creative world. We end up in these like places where you go down an alley and then you're like, wait a minute, how did I get here and what the heck am I doing here? So I even rated that painting of its strainers because I needed them for something else. So now it's devoid of structure completely. So
I do the same thing. I completely created an entire blanket, knitted the whole thing, looked at it and said, I don't like this. And I said, I could leave it here and it will just keep sitting around as a blanket, or I'm just going to unpick it right now and brrr, brrr,
rip it
and
out.
make it back into yarn so I'll use it for something else because what was going on in my head when I started it is not what ended up as the end product. And I've done that numerous times with my needle points, ripping out entire sections because they're not right.
One of the
Yeah.
biggest lessons I learned from the Muppets, working at the Muppets, was we were doing the first arena show, which was live body puppets, and they were making these bird costumes, and they were like miles and miles and miles of tulle, like tutus, but stacked on top of each other, tutus, and then they would cut it into the shape of a bird, sort of like a fluffy bird look about it. They made them all. They were making for weeks, like running it through the machine and ruffling it up and then putting it on an actor. And they went out for the fitting, came back, and then ripped them all completely apart back to the base body that it was structured on. And I thought, yeah, that is the master at work. The master is willing to take it right back to the very beginning and start again from scratch to get it right, not try to fix it or like jump over that like Gucci place piece that doesn't quite work, just
Yeah.
undo it and redo it. Do you find yourself doing that sometimes, Steve? Because it seems like you have just like endless amount of skill and talent and ability to just make everything beautiful, certainly in class. But I wonder if you have those moments.
Well, there is the painter's graveyard, and we've talked about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every painter has one.
Yeah.
They may have burned it or thrown or disposed of the painter's graveyard at some point. And but you do have one.
Does
And
anything ever get resurrected from the painter's graveyard?
well, it's really an interesting just subject. I think that it's kind of like a recycling plant, you know.
Yeah.
Some things will get melted, some things will get discarded, some things will be reused in one way. Like it's actually, as Neil Gaiman, the author, said, it's like your compost heap.
Aha.
And
Yeah.
I think that the painter's graveyard can really bum you out, or you can think about it as like the thing that will cause things to grow. It's actually yours. It's your compost heap. It's not anybody else's failures. It's yours.
Yeah.
So you can at least own that.
Yeah.
And so the thing I've developed a healthier relationship with it. My favorite new thing for the compost heap is the power sander, the palm sander.
I was thinking about that.
Do you work in oil, acrylic? What's your medium?
A little bit of everything, mostly oil though. But like a lot of my paintings have a drawing underneath them, and then sometimes over the drawing I might use acrylic or oil. It's kind of like depends on the situation.
So when you're
But
going to sand it down, you put a mask on, right?
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Okay. Just
Well, yeah. So it's kind of interesting. There's a couple different ways you can sand things down. Well, like you definitely like oil it or use water. Like it needs to be dry before you would attempt this. But there's two ways I work on dye bond, which is like an aluminum panel. And if it's real junk, I just sand it down to the aluminum. And it's been a very cathartic experience to do that because it's unhealthy to live with failures you have no intention of ever fixing.
Oh
They
yeah.
just sit there and
They're
they
judging.
permeate in you. Yeah. They're back there. Oh, yeah. Oh, you gonna ever paint me one day? No, you're not. I'm just hanging out. But like the artist in you, you kind of want to hold on to things like
Yeah.
maybe I'm gonna do something with this.
Yeah.
And every now and then I'll go through my stuff and I say, hey, I'm never doing something with that. But because it's on aluminum, I just power sand that over. And when I paint a new painting over it, it feels better than if
Yeah.
it was a new canvas because you're not allowing for that failure to exist. And it helps you have a healthy relationship with like, what is your process in your work? Like when things go wrong, if you don't recycle them, then you might be bound to like not reconcile yourself with that failure. Like, I can't do this again. What went wrong here? So if you make a decision to like power sand the whole thing down, that stings a little bit. It also feels great. But that little bit of sting might help you make better decisions in the future where you say, I won't do this so that I don't have to sand this off again.
Right. Yeah. I have a funny story about that, like graveyard. A friend of mine from design school who became a well-renowned set designer. He left NYU after graduate school and he threw everything that he'd done in school in the trash bin outside the apartment or outside the school. I can't remember where. And he went by it sometime later, come out of the apartment, went by later, and somebody was like collecting his artwork out of the out of the garbage. And he was like, what do you think you're doing? That's not yours. He said, it's in the garbage. It's in the garbage. I'm taking it. He tried to stop the guy from taking it, but it was in the garbage and he liked it. So what are you going to do? So what we might not like, what we might think is, oh, that was terrible. It came out terrible. Somebody else might like it.
you know,
That's fair enough.
when my daughter first started writing poetry, and I looked at her work, and she was like 12, 13, and I was looking at her work. I was thinking, oh my God, it so reminded me of me when I was her age because I was writing all the time. And I looked at her work and I said to her, um, when you decide you don't like something, don't just throw it away. Keep it because you never know there's going to be a line or something in there that you may use in a future work. So when she was like in her 20s, she came at me with books, binders, dumped them on me and said, you're responsible for this. This is everything I've created. I can't throw anything away because of what you said to me when I was 12.
But you gotta go back through it though, if that's the
Right,
thing. It's like, we got
right.
to go through and sift through and figure out what's working and what's not working. And
Well, it's true. Like, so that's like the extreme end is the palm sander, but we're not talking about the real the compost heap is the idea that all of those musings and unfinished thoughts, if you just eliminated them and started from nothing, you wouldn't have a record or something to draw from. And some of my favorite paintings took years for me to figure out how to finish. And if I had just thrown them away, I don't know if I would like that kind of a process. I'm not going to just form a genius idea out of nothing. You should have something that has a process. So there's many, especially digital images is kind of an easier way to do this, where you're kind of working through ideas and you might just not know how to finish it yet. I mean, what author starts a story they don't know how to finish? And sometimes you got to let something sit in a desk for a couple of months and come back to it fresh so that you can really finish it and kind of bring it to its natural conclusion. And as a painter, as like a somewhat realistic painter here, so you're developing skills. Like you might not have the skills to finish something, but it doesn't mean that those emotions and those experiences weren't valid. And so when you sometimes have the skills to finally follow through on it, you're not starting tabula rasa. You're able to capitalize on some of those ideas that have been permeating in your brain for years.
Do you have like a sketchbook that you sketch out your ideas in before you go and create the canvas and sketch it on the canvas and paint it?
Yeah, so I have what I would call a digital sketchbook.
Ah,
So part of that process of image making, which I think is a really elusive thing that I really did not have a grasp on. Like, how do you create your own world and your process, of like most painters, what they want to do? So, they want somebody to hand them an image that's a genius image, and then you just get to paint it. But that's not really what an artist does. An artist kind of controls the whole process. In my digital sketchbook, what I often do is I'll create like a mood board for a project, and then maybe I'll do a photo shoot with somebody and I'll start collaging bits and pieces, and then I'll paint on it. And like the visual image evolves. It's not like I took a snapshot and that's it. It's usually a process, to tell a more sophisticated story. It's not so easy. And this is why when you look in art history, often they'll look at a Caravaggio painting and they'll say, well, he wiped this out and tried out this figure and moved this person, and it's all X-rays, because you try stuff out and you have to kind of move. The image evolves when you start putting different elements together. And so it's a really efficient way to do it digitally now, where you can experiment and come up with many iterations before you do the improvisational aspects of actually painting.
do you put into like are you thinking when you're creating your work, do you think in terms of like how how it's going to survive 100 years, 200 years,
Well, you
in the
try to,
future?
yeah, I mean, you try to do the best practices without becoming a nut job. You don't know this, but there are painters out there that care more about the longevity of their painting than what they're painting.
Yeah.
Well,
So, like,
Muriel and I have gotten into watching art restorers on YouTube, and it never occurred to me how much degradation happens over time with some of these paintings and how much work goes into restoring them and restoring them properly, not overpainting them, not skinning them when you're cleaning them. I mean, there's so much that can happen to your work after you've created it. Even it could even just get in the hands of the wrong person who could completely overpaint it or modify the image to suit the new owner.
oh yeah, I've seen it right before my eyes, actually, at the New York Academy, where we had a restorer come in and restore a painting. And not to make too big of a deal about it, but often, like the final touches on a painting might be glazes, which is basically transparent little films of color that really adjust things quite a bit. And sometimes people think, or a storer might say that's dirt. Like there's a weird thing in life, I think, with painting. It's like the dirt mixes with the final touches. And when you take off some of the varnish and some of the dirt, you also take away some of the finer qualities of a painting. And so, yeah, over restoring, I think, is something that I'm not in love with, but it has to happen, I guess. But yeah, painting on aluminum is a very stable surface. It's probably one of the most stable surfaces out there because it's not, for the nerds out there, it's not hydroscopic. It doesn't absorb moisture. If you think about wood or canvas, it's constantly taking in moisture, shrinking and contracting. And that is not good for paint because it would cause cracking. So if you're on an aluminum panel, for one thing, you're not going to easily punch a hole through it. It's not going to shrink and contract as much. And it's just nobody's going to roll it up and get wrinkles in it. So it's one of the surfaces that I think is a nice modern innovation for painting surfaces.
Do they sell it in the art stores or you have to go to the hardware store to get it?
They're starting to sell it. It's expensive if you buy it at the art store. I usually go to a sign maker, and
Yeah.
they sell it, and you could get big sheets of it. But yeah, they sell it at the art store. It's just going to cost about 3 or 4 times as much.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very interesting. Yeah, when we watched Baumgartner, the store, he had one painting that was painted on several different pieces of board that were different thicknesses and they had
Mm,
sort of come apart from each other. He built a whole huge table from scratch with different levels that he could like put the painting in this massive table and get the top face level so he could restore it all, restore the painting on the top. To think of
It's
what they
amazing the amount of effort that that man puts into restoring the paintings that come across him. And I watch there's a guy in Manchester who's also on YouTube. He uses old time stuff, like he still uses the rabbit glue, and and that stuff, it degrades over time and, requires constant restoration, over time. It seems like the guy in Chicago, Baumgartner, is more focused on newer materials that are, like the you were talking about the glaze over. So many of them are the old glazes. They just yellow or brown over time. And you're looking at a painting and it's just a big brown mess. And he takes off the glaze and all of a sudden the colors pop. Finding something that doesn't do that sounds like a no-brainer to me.
However,
yeah.
I can't think of what's going to happen to my work in the next 100 years. I don't know. I don't think anybody will care. So,
Well, I'm thinking about it right now because of this next piece that I'm planning, which is made out of plastic garbage bags.
oh, well,
And
that's
not
next
garbage bags, plastic grocery
shopping
bags.
bags. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how long are they gonna last? I mean, they say they last forever, right? Like they last hundreds of years in a dump. So,
But I've seen plastic crumble, like found pieces of plastic in the garden that have crumbled up, just like,
well, I'm hoping my artwork doesn't end up in somebody's garden, but
well, yeah.
still, I'm working out the logistics of how I'm going to do it, and then I keep thinking, is this plastic gonna? Because everything's plastic. I'm weaving it through plastic.
But
Maybe I'll just get some really good digital images, and after it's just completely destroyed, at least I'll have a digital image of
yeah,
what I did.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
That's
Mm.
Anyway, we're taking this over, Steve.
so. So, what are you working on now? Anything interesting?
I got too many projects.
Yeah,
I have a painting up coming up at the New Salem Museum of Art, which is
nice.
a gorgeous museum up in Massachusetts in New Salem. It's probably like the finest living contemporary museum of realist painting run by Michael Klein. And so there's like an invitational with a bunch of artists, and they all get to vote on who wins at the end, the grand prize. And
Yeah,
When
there's
is
even
it?
there's one of those like big checks for like golfers at the
I
end.
love it.
That
I love it.
that's what I really want is the big check. I mean,
Oh,
when
With
what
you
other
with the photo of you standing next to the check.
you
When
do
does
win
this
the.
happen?
It's actually in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay, so it's
And
coming right up.
yeah. And then I got a painting at the Heckscher Museum coming up at in Huntington,
Yeah,
which is
Oh,
out here on the island.
that's where we
we're
that's where we
familiar
went to
with the
high
Heckscher
school.
Museum.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We both grew up in Huntington,
What
so.
Yeah, walked
Huntington's the
past that
best.
museum many times. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like
Congratulations.
the coolest town on Long Island is Huntington, really.
Yeah, it's much bigger than it used to be when we were there.
I'm doing a workshop in Rome in June and
Oh,
one and then
great.
in London after that. So,
Great.
you know,
Well,
a couple different things happening.
yeah, good. And you have the school on Long Island too. We didn't talk about that yet. Your Long Island Academy of Art.
Yeah, me and my wife been running that school for about 10 years, and we have a nice community of people. We've been painting together. So some really talented artists here, and our teachers are fantastic as
All
well. So
ages.
yeah, all ages. I mean, usually we get them at the beginning, and a little later we have the like college age is kind of missing, but every now and then we'll get somebody who really wants to like apply to one of these atelier schools or get a master's degree, and they'll come in and kind of beef up their portfolio with us.
Great.
So, and then I've been, teaching online, of course, and that's been really cool to just be able to teach people around the world, really. I kind
Yeah.
of collect countries now,
Yeah.
and so that's a part of our school as well.
I love that. Yeah, because when we're in class, you've got people in Jakarta and Germany and India and California and Connecticut,
New Zealand
New
lately,
Zealand.
which is a great honor because it's like 3 a.m. over there. Like,
Yeah,
what
people
are
are
we
getting
doing
up.
in a live class? Usually they watch the videos later, but every now and then she'll join in like 2 a.m. I'm like,
Yeah,
wow, this
it's
must.
it's it's great and it's a fabulous class. Just I love it. And I've just been very busy myself this last year, so that's why I haven't been there, but I'm coming back. I
Well,
promise.
once you palm sand, the
Yeah,
Madonna, it'll
yeah,
be ready.
yeah,
That
definitely.
that's on my bucket list is to learn to paint. I'm so intimidated by all the different mediums and mixing colors and I don't know what got me intimidated because I wasn't that way so much in art class in school, but but it seems to me like every time I get my hands involved in it, I get a little yeah. I, oddly enough, I'd rather do it with fabric. I'd rather do it with yarn. I'll spend hours picking the right color yarn and stitching it in and making it look perfect. Mixing colors on a palette is something that intimidates me.
I think it's
I,
like the massive subjectivity of painting that's really scary for some. Some people love it. It's very scary, and there's a lot of fear, of course, in painting and making art. And doing something like drawing sometimes is even a little more straightforward. Painting, it's like how thick, how thin, how colorful, what brush. There's like a million questions
right.
that it's hard. There's no like definitive answer. If you ask 10 different people, you're going to get 10 different answers. So it can be intimidating in that way. If somebody really wants to learn, I think it's probably best to almost like put all of that to the side and try to get on a path where like even if you don't agree with it, this is how I learned from one of my teachers like this is the way, and I've like complained the whole way. I don't agree with you, this is awful, I don't want to do it. But that foundation, even when you don't agree with it, it just gives you experience to where you can then build off of that system, even if it's not exactly what you want to
Like
do.
Nike, just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and just find a path, really.
Yeah,
So,
right, right, right.
When I was teaching at NYU, I would say I had various exercises that we would do. And I would say, because it was figure drawing. And so I had the book, The Natural Way to Draw, that we would work from. It's a great, great book. And I would say, I know you're half of the time you're going to think this is a really stupid exercise and you're going to hate it. And actually my first talk would always be, you're probably going to disagree with your teachers half of the time, but it doesn't matter. Just do what they say now, because if you do it now, you will get something out of it, and then you can keep it or throw it out. It doesn't matter later on. Not arguing with the teacher about process is just a waste of time. You might as well just get that, get something out of that. And so people would, they're like, oh, that's a really stupid exercise, just drawing people as a squiggly, like squiggly man. But I'd say it's not about drawing the squiggly man. It's about seeing the squiggly man
Yeah.
and seeing what. So half the time, the exercises are not really what they seem to be. It's more about some kind of a comprehension for the body and for the whole psyche that you're looking for. So those exercises might seem like one thing, but that they're not. They're something else. And we all see differently. I would find, interestingly, I noticed over the years of teaching that a lot of the people in our culture here in America and from England would start drawing outlines. They just immediately gravitate to outlines. A lot of people that came from African countries or South American or something like that went for form. They would want to put a brush stroke down and get like a whole shape first. That was
Mhm.
what they wanted to get first. So we can see in any way we want to get ourselves to that place that we want to be with that.
Yeah, I wish somebody would have explained to me. I wish I would have been malleable enough, but like learn how to learn.
Yeah,
You know what I
that's
mean?
one
Like
thing missing in school. Yeah, learning how to learn. That's the key component of it all.
yeah, like when you try anything hard and if you stick with something, you learn so many lessons about what an ecosystem is and how to learn and how to process things. And that's really the reason to try anything hard is to learn how to learn and gain experiences and be transformed by that process, I think.
Yeah.
I think I was well into college before I learned how to learn. I think up until that point, I'd kind of learned how to fake it.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
well, I
Well,
think that's true. And in a lot of situations, the powers that be would prefer that we didn't learn how to learn. It's better if we just do what you're told. Don't mix it up. Don't get in the way. Just, do it this way. This is the way it's supposed to be done.
well,
But
yeah, there's a lot
I
of
can
ego in it. There's
Yeah.
ego from the student and there's ego from the teacher. And when you find a great teacher or if you become the right student, that's when the process is a lot easier.
Yeah.
when I was in school, it seemed to me like I could pretty much be assured an A if I just learned to give back the teacher what they gave me in class. Just spit it right back at them, which it kind of seemed stupid to me at the time. But I was like, this is what they want. This is what I'm going to give them. And when you find a teacher that forces you to think, not just feeds you information that you've got to give back to them, that's when you start to really learn how to learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, experiences from art school, which I always thought were funny. You'd have students that would spit back what the teacher want, and you get the A, but then there'd be like the people that did what they wanted to do, but they made it sound like what the teacher wanted. And then they got an A too. And I felt like that was always like a really interesting thing that would happen. And other students would be mad, like, oh, they didn't follow the project. But what they followed what was really interesting to them and they tried to frame it within that context. And, especially for like teaching artwork, that's often what to me is the most successful is like actually make it your own and frame it in that way and try to like get all of the things clicking, enjoy the process and find something that find some space for you in there as well.
Yeah. As you're saying that, I'm aware that there's sometimes that something is so different and new and strange that you can't grasp it. So in a lot of ways, we have to where we head into new territory. Imagine some sort of abstract art showing up in the Renaissance, just
Mhm.
tossed in the trash right away. What is going on here? This is nothing. Well, congratulations on the exhibits. That's exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got to look up the date. I forget what date it is. I think I drop it off next week. But yeah, it's like the Long Island Biennial,
Yeah. Oh,
something like
that's
that.
nice. Good. Great. Is there anything like fabulous piece of wisdom that you would like to share with people about creating what they want to create? I mean, how to take that first step?
How to create what they want to create. Well, I mean, you talk about not giving up. I mean, I think that, yeah, in one of your questions or statements in your email, you're talking about people, how to get unstuck. And I think that that's really what you're talking about. And I thought about that for a second, and I thought about that book, The Artist Way, which I thought was going to be hokey.
Yeah,
Like I thought, oh man, I don't, every people recommended that book to me for 20
yeah,
years. And I was like,
yeah,
oh boy,
yeah.
I'm
You're
never
talking about
reading this
Julia
thing.
Cameron book, right?
And then I read it, and the message of that was get unblocked. You
Yeah,
know, like where you can get blocked, and it can happen in a variety of ways. You know, things
yeah,
in your life, stressors, whatever it is, and you got to make some time for some creative space that, to me, is free of judgment.
yeah,
And I think that judgment and fear is the biggest creative killer that's out there. And that is probably the biggest thing that holds people back. And practicing being unafraid and making time and space for it, I think, is probably the most important thing. And when I hear of different songwriters, they just record, they write, and they don't judge. And then there'll be time for judgment later. You can, judgments everywhere.
right.
We have to make some space in a judgment free zone and allow yourself to make lots of iterations and explore that without, judging yourself so harshly. And the more and more that I teach painting and see people, there's just a lot of fear with it. And I have a fire chief from New York City. He's like down there in 9/11. He's been in burning buildings. He's rescued people from certain death. And then he's like, Steve, I'm afraid to make that brushstroke. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man?
I
You gotta
love
let
it.
that go, man. Like this is not life and death.
Yeah,
And for some odd reason, sometimes creativity is like that for people, and painting is like that. And the only way is through, and
yeah,
to make some time for that space for yourself.
right. Well, and now you remind me, your music. You still playing? You still
Yep.
making music?
Well,
Great.
talk about things that are hard that I don't have time for.
Yeah,
That would be music, but I stick with it. I'm playing with my son. He's the star of the show. I'm
yeah.
like basically the bass
Back
player
up.
here. Yeah, like it's amazing what young people, if they're surrounded in a certain environment, they're like little sponges, and he's able to improvise and do all kinds of things, and it's a beautiful thing that we do together. So I'm very appreciative for that. Music's a big part of my life too.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you. So again, your website is Steve Fort.
SteveHorster.net. I have a Patreon page with some pre-recorded lessons. There's classes available on my Podia site, and you could also check me out on Instagram.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you, Steve. This has
All
been
right.
this.
fun.
Thank you.
That's fun. Cool.